People of the internet, RetroRaconteur here, and today we are taking a look at the top 10 spells for PvP in Harry Potter Magic Awakens. So at number 10, we have Apugno, which is one of my favorite cards. I mean, the fact that it only costs 2 MP, which I do think you have to take that into account when we're ranking this list here, the value of the card compared to what it costs you and what it gives you in return. I mean, for only 2 MP, you will summon 6 canaries, and they can do a total of 168 damage. That's with my card being at level 8 right here. That is going to change based on the level of your card. But if you have something like a monster book that's gotten thrown at you, Apugno is great because it's most likely going to take out that card unless there's just a huge difference in terms of the levels there of the card. But it is absolutely a great card, has good range, it's going to home in on the target, and there's really not a great way to block it. You're almost always going to hit with Apugno. This is also good if you're running a Bellatrix Echo because it's going to help you get the Death Eater even faster. I've also seen this used a lot with the Broomstick, so you can use the Broomstick, go to the other side of the board. Maybe you have that opponent who's just kind of lurking in the very back. You want to throw this, and then you throw Broomstick right after it, and you're going to be able to take them out even if they're kind of sitting back in the corner for a very low MP cost of 2. Now, the disadvantages, I would say, is it's not going to be that great against your bigger, tougher enemies. It can be good to add a little bit of extra hit to them because you know you're also going to have your basic attack going as well. So if you've got them close to finishing them off, then Apugno can be great. Again, the fact that it only costs 2 MP, it can also be really good in Hermione decks if you're trying to cycle through to get to her bigger spells because, you know, as you use those lower cost spells, then it's going to open up the bigger ones for you. Harry decks, it's also great in that type of deck as well. Just a really versatile card. And again, I mean, for 2 MP, it is really, really strong. All right, moving on to number 9, we have Expulso. Yes. Now, I was sleeping on this card for a while, I have to admit. You see the damage, you think, oh, wow, only 2 damage. That's not that great. But honestly, this card is far more about the control aspects than the damage aspect. Now, yes, like Apugno, it's such a low MP cost. It only costs 2 MP. If you have an opponent, if you have an enemy nearby that is very weak and almost finished off, then you can just throw this. It only costs 2 MP. You know, it's not that big of a deal if you use it. However, this card can also really be used for positioning, and this is actually how I use it a lot. Let's say you have an enemy just outside the range of Cassandra's Ring, for example. You can use that Expulso to actually launch them back into it. Or maybe you have someone who's just sitting inside Nebulous or sitting inside Protego Diabolica, and you want to knock them out of that for a little bit. You can use Expulso to do that. It also will get you out of Orb of Water, has a little bit wider of a range than something like Inflatus, and it costs 1 MP less than Inflatus. So if somebody's got you stuck in Orb of Water, you can always throw out this spell. Even if you miss, it only costs 2 MP, but if you actually hit, then it's going to knock you free of that. Now, this can also be very useful in duels. So if you have someone who is getting revived, Expulso will knock them out of that. Now, I can't stress enough, guys, if you are playing duels, I run into this so much as I see people not prioritizing preventing that res. It is absolutely insane how these games can turn, because when you get rezzed, you get an overshield and you get quite a bit more health than you had. But I have to say, when it comes to duels, I really feel like a lot of the people that I match up with, they just aren't prioritizing finishing off that opponent when they're going for that res. You have one down. If you have the other one at all close to finishing them off, prioritize knocking them out of that res using something like Inflatus or like Expulso. Incredibly versatile spell. And again, it only costs 2 MP, so just a really good value there. Okay, at number 8, we have Whizbang. Now, this card is currently banned right now in the PvP mode for the game. People were really, really using this card a lot. And honestly, this one would be even higher, but there are 2 things working against it. First of all, it does cost 7 MP, so one of the highest costs in the game. And you pretty much don't want to use this card without pairing it with something else. Like Inflatus is one that I see a lot of people using, and then also Incarcerous is the other one that people use this in conjunction with. It does work very, very well in a Hermione deck because you can use those lower cost spells to reduce the cost of this. And when you get this thing down to costing a lot cheaper than 7, I mean, the bang that you're getting here, no pun intended, by the way, the bang for your buck is just incredible with this card. If you get someone trapped with Incarcerous and then you hit them with this, it is just massive, massive damage that can totally change a game. And honestly, right now, there aren't very many counters to this card. I think that's probably why people were fed up and had it banned for this week. I mean, you can use the broomstick a little bit. You can use manticores, baby manticores, to kind of help out to try and get away from this card. But at the end of the day, it paired with Incarcerous. I also think Incarcerous has something going on right now where it kind of extends out a little bit more than it probably should. I feel like sometimes I'm even out of the range of Incarcerous and it'll still kind of pull me in anyway. But the way that people are using this card right now is just incredibly, incredibly strong. Now, we said this is a PvP list. This card is also really good in PvE as well in the right situations. I mean, you look right here in the video. When you can get multiple enemies like that, it's just insane. You don't see it used as much in solos. I mean, I do see some people use it and use it very well, but I see it far more often in duo duels. And if both people are running this card, it's just incredible. Now, the one disadvantage, again, is that it costs so much MP. So if you're not running a Hermione deck, it's kind of tough to use this card. But if you are running a Hermione deck, then it is just absolutely incredible. I mean, look at the damage right here. I think at some point, they're probably going to have to nerf this card and maybe also nerf the range of Incarcerous as well. I mean, I guess when you balance it with the fact that it does cost you so much to use it, your goal, if you're facing this card, my approach to it has been just trying to overwhelm the opponent, throw so many things at them that they have to use their resources. They have to use their MP to take care of the enemies around them. Because if you just let them sit back and they get to build up the meter on this card and they get to have enough MP to use this and Incarcerous, then it's really incredibly tough to deal with. Now, we mentioned the monster book once already, and it comes in at number 7 on our list with only a cost of 3 MP, 3 damage, so it's a little bit more than something like Expulso. But the biggest advantage of the monster book is how it races across the board. You can use this to take out a Niffler, you can use this to take out someone's bomb box, and you can also pair it with your bomb box to do even more damage. It's just an incredibly versatile card, and the fact that it only costs 3 MP, it's crazy, man. It's so annoying. I mean, it'll go and destroy someone's bomb box. It'll destroy someone's Niffler. Now, another great way to use this card is it will also eat away at the Norwegian Ridgeback Egg, which is a really powerful card. If someone puts that egg down, you know they have an amount of time where they have to get that egg to hatch. So you need to be doing as much damage as you possibly can. The monster book, paired with something like Atmospheric Charm or the monster book and something like Incendio, they can really do a lot of work at taking down that Norwegian Ridgeback before it ever even really gets going. At number 6 on our list, we have Incendio. This is a card I have focused on upgrading. I've gotten it up to level 10. It does cost 4 MP, but this card, I actually like it a little bit more than Confringo. Confringo costs 1 more MP and can be stronger in a lot of situations, but Incendio for me is much more reliable. You have that little ring, that clearly defined area where you know it's going to go. Now, one crazy thing about this card, if someone uses, we just talked about the monster book, which is a good card, stack of monster books, I really like that card. I really do. However, if someone is running Incendio and it is at that level or higher than their monster book card, then it is just going to absolutely shred all 3 of those monster books. You just have to make sure you let them get in close and that they all stay inside that ring when you use it. Now, one thing that I myself have had to work on and have seen a lot of people do is they'll throw Incendio when they're walking back from enemies. Now, with a lot of enemies, you don't want to do this because they will keep approaching. They are following you. They are tracking you. And so if you throw that Incendio, they're not going to get caught in the full area of that spell. Now, Incendio can also be very helpful if someone is just sitting and hiding in Nebulous. Maybe you throw a Thunderstorm, and then you have enough MP left to use Incendio. Kind of wait a little bit, see if they go into Nebulous, and then you can throw that Incendio there, because they definitely do not want to just sit there and take Incendio, because it does do pretty solid damage as well. I mean, you have a 4 damage here. You could also pair this with something like Inflatus, something like Incarcerous, where if you hit them with that and then throw down an Incendio as well, doesn't do quite as much damage as something like Whizbang, but again, it only costs 4 MP. Now, another reason that you want to make sure you stay close to those enemies when you're using Incendio, that you don't walk away, is because of this right here. The closer enemies are to the center of the flame, the more damage they take. So you want to make sure that they are positioned at the dead center of the flame, and if you're moving around, then they're going to start moving around. They're not going to take that full damage right there. This can be very helpful against Pure Totem Locomotors, which are really strong right now. This can also be very helpful against Antipodian Opalize. Even though they're flying, the Incendio will still hit them. Again, You want to make sure that you're staying relatively close, though, because if you're moving around too much, then they're just going to be moving in and out of that Incendio ring. Really, any time that you get overwhelmed by a group of enemies, like, if someone's throwing a bunch of Cornish pixies, if they're throwing spiders at you, if they're throwing monster books at you, all of those enemies you can kind of let collect in close and then use Incendio, and it's just an incredibly powerful card. Okay, at number 5, we have a card that I don't personally use a lot, maybe because I just got it, but I have to say I have faced a lot of players running Orb of Water, and it is incredibly difficult to deal with, which is why it comes in at number 5 on our list today. It does cost 6 MP to use, but it does a lot of damage. And not only that, you can also use it as a control spell as well. So you're going to be able to move these enemies around. You can actually catch multiple enemies in this. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen people get caught in the Orb of Water and then make another mistake. Like maybe they throw Ron out there as a companion. Then Ron gets caught in the Orb of Water as well. But you compare this with so many other things. In duo duels as well, oh my goodness. I mean, I've seen people run Hermione as a companion, so they'll throw Hermione, and then they'll have double Orb of Water, or maybe you've got the duo player throwing Incendio down, throwing Whiz-Bang down while they're caught in the Orb of Water. It's just an incredibly powerful card with really not a lot of counters. I mean, you can use Expulso, you can use Inflatus to get out of it, but even then, as long as you're moving around, which this is the big key using this card, whenever you have someone caught in it, you want to make sure that you're moving around. Make your movements unpredictable. You don't want to be easy to hit with something like Expulso or Inflatus, because then you're going to get knocked out of it and you're not going to get the full damage. Now, one thing here is you really want to try and make sure that you hold them to the end. At the end of casting, the orb will explode, dealing massive damage. So that is the part that you want to make sure that you hold them all the way to the end, because if they get out before the end, or if they get out at that part, let's say they use like broomstick or something, so they're caught in the first wave of it, but then they kind of get out right at the end, you're not going to get the full damage, especially the big burst at the end right there. At number 4, we have Pier Totem Locomotor. Absolutely one of the strongest spells in the game right now, especially if the person is running the Hagrid Echo. They are incredibly tanky boys. When they drop in, their damage is reduced by 99%. So don't even waste an attack. When they first drop in, do not waste an attack on them, because it's basically going to do absolutely nothing. They also have 377 health. Front row, a 4-star ranking right there. Damage 55, but of course that's just with one hit, because they are going to attack and attack and attack until you take them out. So Incendio can be really strong against them. Confringo can be really strong against them. In the right situations, Ron can also be really strong against them. But if you have someone that's running Hagrid and they're running like Swelling Solution and they're running these guys, I mean, you absolutely have to prioritize getting rid of them as fast as possible. Just make sure you don't do it when they're taunting, again, because it's not going to do anything. Now, if you're looking for counters, another really strong way to go against these guys is using something like Ventus, because that's going to buy you a little bit of extra time. You push them away with that wind. They're going to be taking damage while you do it. It gives your MP time to build, so you can plan what you're going to do next, and also just keeps them off of you, because once they get in close, you really don't have a lot of options at that point. You could throw something like Inflatus, you could throw something like Incendio to try and take them out as well. At number 3, just edging out the Pier Totem Locomotor, we have the Antipodean Opali, which once again, paired with the Hagrid deck, is incredibly strong. Paired with Swelling Solution, oh my goodness. When you increase the attack rate, how fast this thing is breathing fire, it is incredible what this thing can do. 4 damage ranking right there, 362 health, DPS of 19.6, damage of 59. But it's the range and the fact that they are in the air that makes them even more difficult to deal with, I think, than Pier Totem Locomotor. Now, if you watch up here in the video, they can also be incredibly helpful at dealing with spam. I mean, because of that AoE damage, just look at that. One burst of fire. I know spiders aren't very strong, but one burst of fire, and they just absolutely obliterate them, and then also get to work on the trolls as well. Antipodean Opali, really, it's hard for me to find any negative about this card right now. I mean, it does cost 6 MP. There's not really any way to reduce that either, since it's not a spell. Not even Hermione's going to be able to reduce the cost of that, so you are going to have to pay the price with the 6 total MP cost there. But just a very strong card right now, and also incredibly strong in the forest. Again, I know it's a PvP deck, but if you're running this in the forest and Hagrid, it's dominant. All right, so what could possibly top Pier Totem Locomotor and the Antipodean Opali? Well, I have Thunderstorm right here, coming in at number 2 on our list. Now, the only reason that I rate Thunderstorm a little bit higher than these is because of the fact that it is that much more difficult to counter. Yes, I know about Nebulous. However, there are so many ways to get the player out of Nebulous. When you have someone running this, and they're running like a Bellatrix deck or something, maybe they're running Hermione Companion as well, they throw Hermione, then they throw the double Thunderstorm, especially if you are the only player and you don't have any summons on the battlefield with you right then, you are going to take so much damage from this, and it's essentially guaranteed hits. There's nothing you do about it unless you go into Nebulous. That's really it. You could also get a lot of other enemies on the battlefield, so they'll try and spread out some of the damage as well. That can actually work to your disadvantage sometimes, because for each opponent that the lightning defeats, its damage increases by 10%, and it can stack up to 5 times. So let's say you have a bunch of spiders out on the battlefield. If the lightning takes them out, then it's just going to increase the damage that it's doing to you. I mean, so this is great for ad control. This is great for if you have just one opponent on the field at a time. Now, it's not only good in a Bellatrix deck. You can also use this in a Hermione deck. And when you get that MP cost down, because it is a spell, it's not a summon, it's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous that you can have a card like this. Then if you throw something like, oh, I don't know, Priori Incantato in there as well, the fact that you could have this card back to back, and then if you have a Hermione as well as your companion, it could just put out a ridiculous amount of damage. And because of the fact that it is almost unblockable, that's why it's number 2 on my list. All right, what could possibly top all of those cards at number 1 on our list? You guys probably already know it because of the fact that we haven't talked about it yet. And of course, in any kind of PvP list, we have to talk about the Bomb Box. That's number 1 on our list, the Bombtastic Bomb Box. Now, I know what you're thinking, Retro, how can this card possibly be number 1? Because on its own, it's really not that strong. And that is true. However, it only cost 3 MP, which means that you are going to be able to pair this with something like Cornish Pixies, with something like the Cats, with something like the Monster Book, and do massive, massive damage. This card is essentially what helped me get all the way from a novice to a grandmaster. Now, I would check my stats at the end of a lot of these games, and almost every single time, the card with the most damage, more than Thunderstorm, more than Opali if I was running it, more than Pure Totem Locomotor, more than Incendio, it was always the Bombtastic Bomb Box because of just how much damage it puts out when it's tossing those bombs all out across the field to all your other little allies. And I kid you not, that is how I got to Grandmaster. Now, if you guys want to hear more PvP tips for how I went from Novice to Grandmaster, I already have a video on that here on the channel. I'll link it over there on the right side of your screen now. As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.